It is December 1st, and I have 25 Christmas movies here that for me, I'm challenging myself to watch one of these every single day. You can follow along, but the reason I'm doing that is I never really do the challenges, and I'm not really necessarily challenging you, I'm challenging myself. Because last year, I know for a fact that all these movies got played, and I didn't really get to sit down and enjoy them, being super busy. I do all the cooking in the house and family and everything that goes on. These movies, while I saw bits and pieces, I didn't get to sit down and enjoy these all at once. So now that's what I'm going to be diving into. Now, we're not talking about any of the rated R Christmas movies this year. There's this huge pile of movies that I watch every single year, and I'm still going to watch them this year. But we're not talking about that because many of those people are also going to be talking about those as well. And I did get to watch every single one of those probably a couple times last year. Now, we're not talking about the Christmas must watches like Elf and Home Alone and Christmas Vacation. This pile right here, this is going to, not be talked about because 100% they're must watches. I watch them every year, and I think everyone recommends those films. So while they're great, and I recommended them last year, you can check out that video at the end. I also have these movies here. These are bonuses. Now, I normally save the bonus till the end, but I wanted to put them up front because these are movies that I think they're great, but they don't necessarily fit into the Christmas movie category, I think. Now, there's arguments of Die Hard. For me, 100% Christmas movie that, everything about it. You can't even tell me that it's not, but people do. But these movies here take place over the span of a couple months. So while Christmas is there, or Christmas might be a bigger part of the movie, the entire film is not set at Christmas. And so that's why I mentioned these ones. The very first one here stars James Belushi, Michael Caine, and it's Mr. Destiny. So this is one of my favorites. I was watching this since I was a kid, and this is a movie where James Belushi kind of doesn't really love his life. He thinks like if he did something different when he was a kid or he could go back and change it, his whole life would be different. And he gets that wish, and then he sees how different his life is, and is it worth it, is it regretful. So that's something that, one, I really enjoy, but it's the perfect time to watch this movie. There is a Christmas scene in here, but the whole thing is not a Christmas movie, but I do like to watch it around this time. Now, the other bonus is this Judy Garland film. Why I mention it is because the famous Judy Garland song, the when she's singing "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas," that comes from this movie. And while it's one of my favorites, it spans over the course of a couple months. There's a whole Halloween scene in here, so the kids are doing Halloween. And that's an interesting thing because back in the day, what happens in this film, that's how Halloween used to be. If you Google it, like before the candy companies really started, pushing, selling candy and giving candy for the season, they used to like go around and throw flour at their neighbors and burn stuff, and these kids were just running amok. And you see that in here, and you actually look it up, and apparently it was like 100% like a real thing. So that's really interesting. But there's a whole Christmas scene in here. The majority of the climax of the film, if you will, is a Christmas movie. So this one is a must watch for me. Absolutely love this one. So those are the bonuses. December 1st, I'll be watching Hook. Now, this one here, if you've never seen it, it's got a great cast. You have Dustin Hoffman. This was directed by Steven Spielberg. Robin Williams is in this one. He plays Peter Pan. And then Julia Roberts is Tinkerbell. Now, this one here, it came out in the 90s, and it's just, a beloved classic, a great family film. But if you've never seen it, Robin Williams plays Peter Pan, but he's all grown up. He's forgotten about Neverland. And then Hook comes and steals his kids, and then he has to go back to Neverland, which he doesn't remember any of it. And he has to then face Hook and remember that who he was. And this was just for me, a great family film, but a wonderful watch for this time of year. Kicking off December 2nd is a movie that I'm going to be watching, and it's something I look forward to all year round. Now, my daughter loves this one, and she watches it. She would watch it all year round if she could. It's one of the ones that I kind of put in the Christmas drawer. I have a whole drawer for Christmas films, and it just kind of stays there, and that way it's out of sight, out of mind for her, because I think this movie probably gets watched at least a dozen times from now until the Christmas tree comes down. And so we're talking about Edward Scissorhands. Now, this is just a classic Tim Burton film. Johnny Depp, he plays Edward Scissorhands, and Winona Ryder's in this one. And as a kid growing up, I think Winona Ryder was the best. I had a huge crush on her all growing up. I probably still do. but just a big fan of this movie. And this is another one that at the beginning, Winona Ryder's playing an older version of herself and she's telling a story, and then the story unfolds and it's not Christmas at all. But then at the end of the movie, you got the snow, you got the whole Christmas thing. So there's Christmas in here, but it's not really a thing. It's not, it's winter time, but it's generally most people never think of this to watch during this season. But this is going to be my number two. Really looking forward to it. Now, December 3rd is something that I look forward to all the time. It's a movie that when we watch the first one, we watch the first one around Thanksgiving time because it's a Thanksgiving movie. But then the second one, there is the Christmas conversation in it. While it's not overly in your face Christmas, they say Merry Christmas. There's like people carrying packages. It's there. So we're talking about grumpier old men. This is one of my all-time favorites. And Jack Lemmon, Walter Matthau, I think are just a top-notch duo. They've played together in many films, but these grumpy old men and grumpier old men movies are some of my all-time favorites and just the ones that I really look forward to every single holiday season. But Grumpier Old Men is just a classic. Coming in for December 4th is Home for the Holidays. Now, this is just a classic Disney film from 1998. Stars Jonathan Taylor Thomas, Jessica Biel. Now, if you've never seen this one, Jonathan Taylor Thomas's character, he's kind of a shady guy. He's always doing stuff that's not really on the up and up. He's trying to help the football team cheat, but he's getting paid for it. He's always, trying to cut corners everywhere. He hasn't been home in years. His dad wants him to come home to visit, but he cashes his tickets to go to some romantic vacation with his girlfriend, but she's not having it. She wants to go home, and so then he recashes his tickets in. He's going to go home. His dad offers to give him a Porsche, and so now he really wants to go home. But because he screwed some people over, they put him in the Santa suit. They glue the beard and the hat onto his head, and they leave him in the desert. Now he has no money. He's stuck as Santa, and he has to get home in time to get this Porsche. But along the way, like that was the journey, he changes his ways. And this was just a really fun one, especially to watch early on in the Christmas season. December 5th, I'm going to be watching Trapped in Paradise. Now, this is one I look forward to every single year because I love heist films. They're, pretty much my all-time favorite. I don't have as many heist films or con job films that I have of any other genre, but it's like a guilty pleasure for me. I have a select few, they're my all-time favorites, but I'll watch any heist film, even if it's not a good one. So this one here is right up my alley. You have a great cast. You have John Lovitz, you have Nicolas Cage, but Dana Carvey's in this one as well. And if you've never seen it, they're kind of not the brightest bunch, but they're a family of criminals. Two of them get out of jail. Nicolas Cage is trying to kind of stay out of trouble, but they want to get him into trouble. So they trick him to going to this town, Paradise, where they're going to rob a bank. And along the way, they kind of get stuck in the Paradise town where these other people break out of jail because the bank gets robbed, and it was pretty much the job that they were trying to do. So this is just a really fun one to get into, especially early on in the Christmas season, but I highly recommend it. Just a top-notch comedy. Now, December 6th is another early one where you have the whole beginning is Christmas 100%, but this one here kind of has like that Dorothy Wizard of Oz vibe. So it's something that I love it. I was watching it when I was a kid. I had this on VHS for years, and then when it got the Blu-ray announcement, this was a day one purchase for me. And we're talking about Babes in Toyland. So this one here stars young Keanu Reeves, Drew Barrymore, Richard Mulligan, Pat Morita's in this film. So this one here is just a great time, this is a great time to watch this one because one, they go to Toyland where they're building toys for the kids for Christmas, but in Toyland, it's not Christmas. So this one here, just a top-notch film. But the whole beginning, like they're in Cincinnati, Ohio, and they sing this goofy song about Ohio, and then they crash the car because there's so much snow and the blizzard's going on. This is one thing that I absolutely love it. But then you have this whole, like I said, Wizard of Oz kind of vibe where they have the accident and then they're transported to Toyland. They deal with Toyland and then they get out, they wake up, it's Christmas. So it's just one of them things that I I love it. It's just a good wholesome family film. Coming in for December 7th is Better Off Dead. Now this one here is a classic. I've already talked about this one this year because this was an upgrade. I had this on DVD for years, but this one here is 100% a Christmas film. Even though it takes place in a warmer climate area, everyone's decorating for Christmas. There's a Christmas, like 30 minutes in, they're talking about Christmas. There's Christmas trees, but this one here, as there is the snowy elements, and they go skiing, and that's part of the entire thing. So they got snow. It ends in the spring. So this one does take place over a couple months, but Christmas is mentioned 30 minutes into the movie, and so it's one of my favorites. But if you've never seen this one, John Cusack's character, he's head over heels for this girl. She dumps him. He's kind of depressed. That's how the movie starts. But he wants to get her back, and so he's trying to get her back through the whole film. And this is one that, while it's rated PG, some can argue that, because it came out around the time they changed the PG-13 rating system, one could argue this is a PG-13 film because there is some themes in here that might not be suitable for a younger audience, but overall it's not a bad film. Really enjoy this one, and I've been watching it since I was a little kid, and this is just a must for me. So this is one that I highly recommend. December 8th is one that I'm actually looking forward to. It's a movie that I kind of grew up with. It was always on TV around this time of year. We never owned it until I started buying movies and I was an adult. Now, this is something that everyone in my family pretty much loves. And while it's never been huge on my list, there is a little bit of nostalgia for me. And last year, they watched it multiple times, and it just seemed like every single time they were watching it, I was cooking or I was busy doing other things. And so I saw bits and pieces of it, but I didn't really get to enjoy the whole thing from beginning to end. And it's not an overly long film. So this one here is Mickey's Christmas Carol. This is just a classic, basically retelling of, there's no, it's the same story. So it's just a retelling of the classic Charles Dickens story, but really just a good one to watch, and looking forward to it this year. December 9th is something that I look forward to all year round. Now, I already watched it earlier this year, actually probably like really early, like beginning of summertime early, because I didn't have the Blu-ray, because in America we never got a Blu-ray, but Canada did, and that's long out of print, and it's been overpriced in like the $100 price range for a very long time. And then I had a friend of mine tell me that there was a Blu-ray in Germany and there was another place you can get it. So I imported the German version. And so this is the DVD that I've always had. It's one of my all-time favorites. It easily makes my top 25 favorite films of all time. So this is I'm never going to part with the DVD. And so I put it in this red case because I'm keeping it forever. And it is Just Friends. This is one of my all-time favorites. Now, this is the American version, the cover that they had, but the German version, it's definitely a little bit more risque. And this is a PG-13 film, but it definitely kind of borderlines on that inappropriate stuff. But this is the German version of the cover. And the title is Just Friends, No Sex. So it's pretty much nails it on the head. But this is one of my all-time favorites. And so I'll be watching this one, and I'll probably try to watch it multiple times because it is my all-time favorite. And every single time I watch it, I end up dying laughing like it's the very first time I've ever watched it. And for some reason, it really is just my all-time favorite film, all-time favorite comedy. I'll watch anything Ryan Reynolds is in. But if you've never seen this one, Ryan Reynolds, when he was in high school, he plays this really fat kid that's just kind of dorky and goofy, but he's in love with Amy Smart. And so what happens is he always gets put in the friend zone, and he wants her, but there's nothing there. And then he grows up. He's kind of bitter about the whole thing. He's kind of a jerk. And he goes back to visit his family for Christmas, but then everything just kind of falls back into place. He still gets friend zoned. He still really loves her. I just love this film. Now, those are the two versions there, but this right here is something that I got, and I wish that this was the movie poster for the DVD or even the Blu-ray. I think this was just top notch. Now, this is something most people didn't see, and this is because it was a CD press kit. So they would send this out to reviewers and people writing newspaper articles and stuff. They would send this out to them, and they used to do it a long time ago with paper folders and this stuff that's kind of very collectible. But this is something that, while I don't think most of the CD-ROM stuff in here works anymore, it's just a cool collectible, but I love the cover art. And so that right there is something that is just top notch, and I think should have always been the movie cover. And it doesn't really sadden me, but it just kind of is just, I think they missed the mark, because that right there knocks it out of the park as opposed to this. So just my opinion. So I'll be watching that, but just that's a high recommend for me. December 10th is something that I'm looking forward to because this is another movie. Now it is a DVD, but there is a Blu-ray of this, and I just haven't picked it up because I never think about it until this time of year. And now I've already done, my all my buying for Black Friday and Christmas and everything, and so just kind of one of those things where I'm like, oh, I forgot about it. I'll get to it next year, and it's been happening every single year. And so it's Christmas with the Cranks. So maybe next year I'll get this one, but I think I just added it to my wish list on my Amazon. So I'll get to it eventually if it's ever on sale. But this is something that really looking forward to watching this one. Just a top-notch film. You have Jamie Lee Curtis, Tim Allen. So this is something that if you've never seen it, their daughter's all grown up. She's in college. They don't expect her to come home. So then they don't have the Christmas spirit. They don't want to do Christmas, but they're like the go-to Christmas people in the town. Like everybody kind of expects them to go all out. They host this like ridiculous Christmas party every year. And so they just cancel Christmas and they decide they're going to go on vacation to some tropical area. And as they're preparing for that, their daughter decides to come home. And so then last minute, they got to kind of scramble. After they've made the entire town angry over their antics about Christmas, they got to scramble now to try to put all the decorations up, get a tree, get the Christmas food and all that stuff. And pretty much everything's sold out. So this is just something that it's a must watch for the season, but somehow I completely missed it every single time last year. So this is going to be a must for me. All right, December 11th is one that I've been watching it for pretty much as soon as I found this. So there was a time when video rental stores were still a thing. I know it's been quite a while, but then they would always have like some of their older titles after they weren't so popular anymore. They would sell off the extra stock. And so this one I ended up picking up at just a mom and pop video rental store. And I've had it ever since. I actually paid $9 for this many years ago. And it's Fred Claus. Now this one here, just a classic. Fred Claus is Santa Claus's brother, played by Vince Vaughn. He's kind of a screw up, and he ends up going to visit his brother. There's definitely some reluctance there, but just an enjoyable film. And I always died laughing because right before I joined the Navy, and so this is when I saw this, it was like right after I joined the Navy. I used to work for a company where we would do like the furniture rentals. So there, the rent a center stuff like that. So we would do that, and my job was to take back the stuff when people didn't want to pay for it. And so the opening scene here is that. So Vince Vaughn's character is taking back a TV that the parents didn't want to pay for or couldn't afford or whatever. And it's just kind of a funny scenario because it really brought me back to that. And so I guess it's not a great thing to laugh at, but I connected with that really well so this is a movie that's just been in my life forever. And last year, again, it's one I missed. So looking forward to this one and highly recommend watching it. Coming in at December 12th, we have Surviving Christmas. Now this one here has an amazing cast. You have Ben Affleck, Catherine O'Hara, Christina Applegate. You have the late, great James Gandolfini. Now he's an extremely wonderful actor. One of my favorites, top notch. I think that he absolutely loved his craft. Every single movie I've ever seen him in, it's just an amazing performance, and he has so much range. But most people think of him as, Tony Soprano, and I'm glad he was never really pigeonholed into that, even though he does play a good bad guy, a good villain. Loved him in True Romance. But this one right here, just a great film. And if you've never seen this one, Ben Affleck's character is super mega rich. He's got all kinds of emotional problems. He's kind of sad during Christmas. He wants to kind of fill this void. So he goes to his childhood family home, but then he gets this idea to pay the family that lives there now a ton of money to pretend to be his family for Christmas so he can have a good Christmas. And along the way, they change him for the better. He changes them for the better. But this is something that I look forward to watching every single year, and another one that I just kind of missed last year. So looking forward to it this year. Coming in for December 13th is The Family Man with Nicolas Cage, Téa Leoni. Now this is something that, I absolutely love it. But the very first time I ever saw this one, it's been one of my favorites. And so this is something that, Nicolas Cage is another one that he plays like a super mega rich guy, but then he kind of has this thought of like, what if he, got the girl, and there was a girl in his life that just she slipped through his fingers. And what if he got the girl, and what would happen? He wakes up one day, he's married, he's got kids, and his entire life that he thought he had is completely gone. He's got a crap job now. He's not super happy with it. and he's trying to figure out what happened because the entire family has these memories of him and he has no memories of the family, just his previous life. And along the way, it's another one that, again, he changes for the better. Really love this story. One of my absolute favorites, but highly recommend watching it this year. But it's another one, it's PG-13. I don't think it really borderlines on the inappropriate, but it's something that, just to note, it is a PG-13 one. Now, number 14. So December 14th is Saturday. So this is something that I'm going to binge watch all three of these because this is the first year that we've had the third movie. So in this collection, we have Santa Claus 1, 2, and 3. And I put them in these white cases. I did that a couple videos ago showing how I put all my Disney movies in these white cases like they used to do. So this is something that, one, I love, but I think the Christmas movies just look sharp in the white case. But if you've never seen these Santa Claus movies, Tim Allen, I think these are just all-time classic Christmas staples. But we always watch these, and we've always watched these movies every single Christmas. And so since I was a kid, the Santa Claus has just been 100% a staple no matter what. And then Christmas, Santa Claus 2 has been hit or miss on some Christmases. But this is the first time I'm going to watch Santa Claus 3 in a very long time. Now, it was definitely, for me, the weaker of the bunch. But I like the whole trilogy. It kind of fits for the season. And my daughter really loves the third one. So while I don't remember loving it, she loves it. And then I've noticed that I get more joy out of watching movies that she likes and then seeing her laughter and all that. So it just kind of brings me a little more joy. So something I'm looking forward to is diving into this one this year. So we're going to marathon all of these. We're going to make some hot cocoa like Judy. We might make some popcorn and just really dive into all three of these movies for Saturday. December 15th, we have Deck the Halls. Now, this is something that, one, I absolutely love this film. It's one of my all-time favorites, but it's something that, as I've been watching it over the years, and this one it's a newer one, but not that newer. I think this one came out like 2005, 2006, in that range. But this is something, you have Matthew Broderick, Danny DeVito, but just a fun cast of people here for Christmas. Danny DeVito's character, he moves to town, and Matthew Broderick's character is the Christmas guy in town. He's a little bit uptight. He has to have things on a schedule. Everything has to be just so. Where Danny DeVito just kind of goes with the flow. Things come very easy for him. He's a car deal. He's a car salesman, and he ends up selling a car to the dealership's owner. So he's that good. Everything comes very easy. And what he wants to do is he wants his house to be seen from space to kind of fill that void of something that's missing. And so very quickly, Matthew Broderick, who was the Christmas guy in town, is no longer, and Danny DeVito is the guy. And so there's a bit of jealousy there. And then they don't really like each other in the beginning, but towards the end of the movie, they end up liking each other. But the banter, everything that goes on, this is just an all-time fun film. But then at the same time, like, you have that classic physical humor where people are falling down, things are lighting on fire, things break. Just one of my top-notch favorites. So this is one I highly recommend. December 16th, we're going to watch something that I've been watching since I was a kid, but even as a kid, I kind of felt that this was kind of a sad movie, but it has a happy ending. So it's one of those that kind of brings you all over the place. But I think this is a good film to watch a little bit in the earlier side, especially right around there. So the 16th, I'll be watching this one, and I think more for nostalgia for me. So I didn't watch it last year, and I don't even know if anybody else in the house watched this one, but we're talking about One Magic Christmas with Mary Steenburgen. So this is something that Disney put out, but it's got kind of a sad part. But Mary Steenburgen, she's trying to make ends meet. She's not a Christmas person. She's kind of a miser, kind of a Grinch. And her husband's, they're trying to make ends meet. They're having to move during Christmas, or around Christmas time. They have to move. And so just things are not perfect for them. And then, the dad is still trying to put on a decent Christmas for the kids, but then the mom's like, we don't have money, we don't have time for this crap, and has that kind of attitude. Well, something bad happens, the dad is gone, and then she's extra sad. And then so then an angel comes and talks to the kids about Santa and all that, and everyone thinks that, she's missing, she's gone, she was kidnapped. And so there's an actual real touching story with this one, but I don't think it's an all-time classic, but it's just something that, again, for nostalgia, I'll be watching this one, because this is one of the few movies that my mom would rent, for Thanksgiving weekend when we had that time off of school, and then again at Christmas time. So it's something that I've never felt the need to try to upgrade this, and I've only had the VHS, but it is something that, I think it's worth watching this time of year. December 17th is something that, one, I absolutely love it, but it's a movie from my childhood, and this is just an all-around classic Christmas comedy. And if you grew up watching this film, it's probably going to come up on most 80s kids, 90s kids Christmas watch list, and it is Ernest Saves Christmas. Now, I don't think you can go wrong with most of those Ernest films. I have a couple of my favorites, but this one here I think is top notch. And so this one, I think it's just an absolute must. Now, Santa Claus is retiring. He's going to pass the torch to a new Santa Claus. He's trying to convince that guy to become Santa. He doesn't want to be Santa, but then along the way, Santa meets Ernest, and then there's this troubled girl that finds the sack, and there's this whole thing where Santa's kind of needs to be saved, Christmas needs to be saved, and Ernest is pretty much at the forefront of that. But just a really fun film, and this is another one that I don't think you can really go wrong. The scene where um, Ernest is bringing the Christmas tree to Vern, and he comes through, and then it's just like him in front of the camera, and it's that whole scene where he's like cramming the tree through, and just classic Ernest, just knocking things out, ripping the electrical cord out of the wall while he's trying to fix it. It's just, as a kid, I thought it was the funniest thing ever, and something I look forward to watching this year. All right, December 18th, I'm going to be watching Serendipity. Now, this is just a great date night movie. Really enjoyed this one, but this was the first time I watched it this year. When it came out, I kind of remembered it, but I never really, finished watching it. So I did remember the opening scene. So you have this Christmas movie, but it's got this really cute moment in the beginning, how they meet. They have this wonderful day, but then she believes in fate, and so you have this whole kind of magical moment thing where she doesn't want to give names or exchange information because it's just the timing isn't right for either of them. But then she figures if they put their names and phone numbers on a $5 bill and a book, and that stuff comes back to them, then fate means that they were meant to be. And then along the way, they keep kind of missing each other, and then they keep missing the book or the $5 bill. Just kind of things that just kind of, it's almost there, but not quite. But really enjoy this one. And there's an iconic ice skating rink in this that's in Central Park. Now, I grew up in upstate New York, so it's something that was kind of iconic because as I saw it, I was like, oh, that's the Wallman Rink. And if you know about that or you grew up in New York, maybe you're familiar. But when you think of Christmas movies and skate rinks, most people think of Rockefeller Center. But I say this one's iconic because it almost wasn't in the movie, because back in the 80s, it was falling apart and decrepit and dilapidated, and a US president actually saved it. And that's why it's in this movie, because back in the 80s, it was completely saved. And so it's just an interesting thing and something I recognized. But without that happening in the 80s, that rink wouldn't have probably made it in this film, because I'm pretty sure that was like set for demolition. So this is just a fun movie, and that was just a fun fact. December 19th is all planned out with Batman Returns. Now, this is something that I know most people argue it's not a Christmas movie, but I think it is. It says Christmas, they light a Christmas tree, there's Christmas themes throughout. So it's one of those ones, for me, 100%, it is a Christmas movie, and I'll be watching this one, really looking forward to it. And this is another one that I got to watch it last year, but it was kind of a distracted watch. So this is one that I'm going to make sure that there's nothing distracting, and I'm just going to dive into this one. I do have the 4K version, so that's the version I am going to watch, but this is something that I just like, that iconic VHS cover there. December 20th is one that I love, but then actually the one thing that kind of, it always sticks with me, and I hope it doesn't ruin it for you, is the information that I think that the on-screen chemistry was pretty good in this movie, but apparently they hated each other through the entire film. And so we're talking about the Vince Vaughn, Reese Witherspoon Christmas classic, Four Christmases. Now this one here, they, kind of don't go home for Christmas. They kind of blow off their family and they just have their own vacation. They do it every single year, but then something happens and they kind of get stuck. They get caught and they have to go home for Christmas, and they have 4 different families because their parents are both divorced, and so they have to go to 4 different Christmases throughout the entire thing. But it's another one that kind of, really enjoy this one. I don't like to watch it like super close to Christmas usually, but this is one that I know around that time is going to be perfect for me. So this is one that I'm diving into. And I just love Reese Witherspoon. I think she's super cute, but then just the size difference between him and her is just absolutely ridiculous. but I absolutely love it. And I don't mind the movie poster on this one. Normally, I'm one that complains about them slapping the actors on the cover, and it's not an original painted poster like they did in the 80s. But this is something I think it's kind of cute. So December 21st, I plan on a double feature. Now, the second one, if you were following along with me, you're doing the same kind of challenge. It's not a super long movie, so I think it would work perfectly fine. We're talking about The Grinch with Jim Carrey and the original one, the animated version. Now, this is something that I've seen this multiple times throughout my life. It was never my all-time favorite, but it was definitely a Christmas staple. But I really love the Jim Carrey version, and it's something that I'm not the biggest Jim Carrey fan. I like some of his films, not all of them. I like The Mask. I like this. There's a couple others, but the reality is I'm not the biggest Jim Carrey guy. So this one here, when it first came out, I was never really into it. But when I saw it in the 90s, I thought it was great. But then I was also an older teenager, so it's another one of those things where it's like, oh, it's just a kid's movie. And then I grew up, I became an adult, I had kids, all-time favorite. They love it. It gets watched so much, and I find myself getting sucked into this one every single year. And I think the 4K is top notch. So this one here, the animated version, my daughter loves it. She watches it pretty much the entire season, so I hear it always in the background. But it's been a long time since I've actually sat down to watch this one full attention. So looking forward to that one this year. December 22nd, I'm looking forward to this movie probably more than most of the ones in this pile because I did get to watch it last year, but I was super distracted because it's a movie that I usually have to wait till everyone's sleeping because it's something that it really does kind of just bother my wife. So it's something that I kind of, out of respect for her, I wait till she's not around to watch it. But she's on deployment this year, so I'm going to be diving into Gremlins. And now the reason I didn't get to watch this last year is I was wrapping presents, and so it was on, but I was super busy. And then right afterwards, I watched the commentary while still wrapping presents. So it's one of those things that I was kind of on an overload, but it's one of my all-time favorites. I've been watching it since I was a kid. I absolutely love this film. I highly recommend it, but this is something that my youngest was also kind of afraid of. She didn't want to watch it. She put it off. And I'm not sure if it was just kind of my wife's saying about it or mentality about it, because she did used to like it. So there was like the past 5 years, she wouldn't watch it. But then she watched it on her own this year. And so she absolutely loved it. We had a whole thing. And so looking forward to this one because she's excited about watching it again. And I'm excited for watching it for the first time this year. But just going to dive back into this one with 4K full surround sound because I don't have to have it super low because everyone's sleeping. I can have this like during the day, cranked all the way up. So I'm really looking forward to diving into this one. Just an all-time classic Christmas movie. So December 23rd, I'll be watching Scrooged. This is just a classic movie. This one usually gets alternated between around Christmas time, but right before or Christmas Eve is one of the ones we try to watch this one. But this year I have a different plan again because my wife's not around. So I'm going to be able to change things up a little bit. But Scrooge is another one that, while I got to watch it last year, it was another one that was just a distracted watch, but just an all-time classic. Really love this one. And if you've never seen it, it's basically a Christmas Carol, but a whole modern thing from the 80s. Really enjoy this one. I think Bill Murray's just top-notch. You really can't go wrong with Scrooged. Now, December 24th, so Christmas Eve, is something that, here's the plan. One, I absolutely love this movie, and I know my wife doesn't because it's a musical, and I already reviewed it this year and I already watched it this year because it came out in November. So it's something that I've already talked about before, but I'll be watching this Christmas Eve because I do watch this every single year. But again, it's one of those ones that I put on. I've seen so many times that I sit down and then I do other things. But this time, 100%, this is going to be the second time this year that I fully dove in and got to watch it. We're talking about White Christmas. So this is just a beautiful film. Absolutely love the 4K. I think it's just top notch. But this is something that I've talked about multiple times this year already, so I don't think I need to talk about it anymore. But Vera Allen and her legs and that whole dance scene, that's what got me sucked into this. But the reason I watched this one is when I was growing up, this was never like a me film, but it was my dad's favorite. And so after he passed, I've been watching it ever since. But this is going to be a great one for Christmas Eve for me. But then my daughter loves this one, so we're going to watch this, and it's Disney's A Christmas Carol. This is a Jim Carrey one, and this is not a bad watch. Really enjoyed it. And this is one of her favorites to watch Christmas Eve. So we're going to do the whole double feature thing. and maybe this one during Christmas Day, Christmas Eve day, and then this one right before bedtime. Just a nice classic there. December 25th is a movie that I love. I've been watching it for years, since I was probably a teenager, and it's something that, one, my wife does not like this film, so I'm glad that I'm going to be watching this Christmas Day and just really looking forward to it. And it's A Christmas Story. Now, the past few years I've had this 4K. For the past few years, I've only been watching it on the DVD in the kitchen or when I'm kind of busy, because it's a film that I love. And it's one that, again, my daughter didn't really care for it. She was kind of bored with it until last year. So last year, I think, was the first time my daughter watched A Christmas Story, and it was one of her favorites. So really diving into this one, it's going to be a Christmas Day staple. And, I might watch it a couple times throughout the season, but 100% Christmas Day is going to be a must. So that was everything that I'm going to be watching for the season. Check out this video right here to see my rated R Christmas movie list. And with that, remember to watch a movie today, and I'll catch you guys next time.